look at the guy on the left. As we can see, he's kind of just aura farming. He's got the yacht, the girls around him, the designer shades. And this guy says that he can promise you a 4x boost to your MRR. But take a look at the guy on the right. He's a lot more low-key. He's not really flashing or anything. He's just being himself. And this guy says that he can get you a 2x boost. Which one would you go with? I'm going to guarantee you probably said that the guy on the right seems more trustworthy, and the guy on the left seems kind of sketchy. But then the question becomes, well, why do you think this? What exactly has led you to get to that conclusion? Well, it's because this guy is just trying too hard. He's got all of the conventional status symbols. It's something that you've seen time and time again. But the guy on the right isn't really doing that. Everything here looks like it's emerged naturally out of who he is. He hasn't got anything to prove. The odds are you're probably looking more like the guy on the left when trying to build your personal brand, whether you actually want to or not. And it's because what you're doing is you're constantly looking outwards. You're looking at your competitors. You're looking at what's working in your niche. But if your only inspiration is coming from looking outside, then you are doomed to make something called a commodity brand. You will just get forgotten about. And this is why it's so important to look inwards for your own inspiration, because it is only by looking inwards that you can build something that is truly personal. In other words, that is what you want from building a brand. By taking the time to understand who you are, what you actually like, and what moves you, you can access something that you will never find no matter how many different Instagram pages and YouTube channels you scroll through trying to research. I'm referring to the source. This essentially being you, your own inspirations and your own deepest interests. The way that you make contact with the source and the way that you identify it is through 3 specific areas. And when you marry all of these together, that's when you're going to have something completely original. First of all, there's identifying your worldview. That means your beliefs, your values, your unique perspective on life and the world. And then your zone of genius. What is it that you're actually really good at? What's your skill set? Like, what does your business's delivery actually look like? Finally, taste. This being your individual preferences, the things you like and the things that you don't like. If we take a look at perhaps one of the biggest brands in the online business world right now, Alex Hormozi, well, we can identify his source when we look at those 3 things. Hormozi believes in making business accessible to everyone. He focuses on just looking at observable things, measurable value, not abstract concepts. His zone of genius is, of course, well, scaling businesses A to Z. And when it comes to his individual preferences, well, he doesn't like to be showy, so he wears kind of plain clothes. He uses very blunt language. This is something that you don't typically see amongst businessmen. And so by merging all of those 3 aspects of Hormozi together, you get, well, Hormozi. We can see the exact same thing in Steve Jobs. Jobs' worldview was about how technology should relate to human beings and how tech can move humanity forward. When it came to his zone of genius, he had incredible product judgment, and he was amazing at understanding the user experience. And when it came to his taste, he loved minimalism, he loved simplicity, he loved just focusing on the vision. So as we can see, these guys had a strong source behind their brand. That's what was there before anything else. If you want to make sure that you're actually being in touch with your own inspiration, you can't remove any of these from the equation. Every one of these things needs to be dialed in, otherwise you will end up with a less than satisfactory output. If you remove the zone of genius from the equation, well, you're basically just going to have personality content. If you remove the worldview and the unique perspectives from the equation, well, then you're just going to have generic information. I go on all the time about how no one cares about free value anymore. They care about unique perspectives. And if you remove taste, well, this is probably the biggest thing, then you become entirely interchangeable. Now, having a distinct source is great, but it doesn't automatically produce a strong brand. And that's because the idea of a source is it's intangible, it's abstract. And so that takes us right into the second stage of how we do this, translation, methods of making the source legible so people can actually see it. In other words, what we're doing here is we're bridging the gap between your inner world and your public image. Now, of course, the thing to say about translation is it's visible and the source is not. So what people are going to do is they're going to copy the translation, thinking that that's all they need to make a successful brand themselves. They're going to actually neglect the source behind it. That's how you end up looking like Mentor A. And so it doesn't mean anything. Think about it. Let's look at these status symbols. Iced Cartis, Lamborghinis, Miami high-rise apartments. These things used to be images of success. Everybody has copied those symbols because they think that simply by having them, it makes them look impressive or desirable. But now, well, what do we call people that have these? LARPers, because you can get a fake iced carty. You can go and find someone else's Lamborghini in the middle of Brickell, film as many reels next to it as possible before the owner comes back, and then you can go on Airbnb and rent a Miami high-rise. It's not that difficult. But again, if we look at someone like Hormozi, this is his translation on display. And we would say this is good, this is unique. Same with Steve Jobs. Again, this is good translation. What if somebody new came into the scene and they dressed exactly like Hormozy, or they dressed exactly like Steve Jobs. They acted in the same way. Well, we would say that that's absurd, and it would be absurd because they're using this visible translation without actually having the person behind it. So why the hell would this stuff be any different? I would say as a rule of thumb, there's about 5 key areas that you should be looking at. First of all, it's going to be storytelling. When you tell stories and you say how you started out, that's going to reveal depth of character, experience, and it's going to validate you as somebody that people should listen to. Very, very important. Think about Hormozy's story when he quit his top consulting job, tried to go out on his own, failed 9 times, was sleeping on the floor of his gym at night, but eventually, through hard work and discipline, he broke through. I would say then you'd be looking at aesthetics and aesthetic direction. That's going to be any kind of communication through visible form. That is, what's the lighting look like? That is, what clothes are you wearing? What hairstyle do you have? Anything like that. When it comes to aesthetics, Daniel Dalen's a great example. He uses minimalism, that sort of analog and retro vibe, to create that deliberate imperfection. Or perhaps Jonathan B's vibe, where he's got that old school academia, very well dressed, like classical Ivy League vibe. Old school libraries as his backdrops. Next, I'd say you want to be looking at conduct or your behavior. What kind of things do you say? How do you say them? What kind of energy do you bring to the camera? Think about someone like Nero Knowledge and the banter that he has with AJ behind the camera, the stupid jokes that he makes. It's very unusual to be watching someone break down abstract spiritual concepts and be laughing and joking about it, instead of being one of these strange hippie zen dudes. Then you want to look at symbols. This is compressed meaning into specific items or specific cues. So think Andrew Tate's Bugatti. What did that say about him? And finally, what kind of environment are we using? That's of course communication through setting and context. There's this term in film called mise en scène, which essentially means placing on stage. But it's the idea that every single prop, the exact location that you're filming in, the background, all of that communicates something about the tone of the scene, the tone of the film, and the characters involved. Think about Jet Franzen in his parents' basement, and obviously what that says about him and his brand. But that's proof that that said enough about him and his unique identity that it worked. Again, copying signals from other successful brands, like having a guru wall and an expensive studio, it doesn't matter. It's just got to be whatever works with you. So after you've gone ahead and you've made the source visible through translation, well then people are going to obviously see what you're putting out because it's now visual, and they're going to have an interpretation. And that's going to take us to the final aspect of this, perception. The audience's conclusion about you. And that's going to be influenced based on the signals that you're sending. I want to put emphasis on the word influence. You can't fully control your perception. It physically can't be done. But good translation will get you close. But if you can nail that, then you're going to have more influence over that end conclusion. And we can break down perception into 2 key stages. First of all is the conclusion that they draw, who and what they believe you are. And of course, the goal for the conclusion is that you want it to draw your dream followers, your ICP, your ideal audience closer. And again, like I said, it may never be 100% accurate, the conclusion that people draw, but that doesn't matter. As long as it's positively favorable, that's fine. No conclusion is fixed. It can change, it can deepen and shift as you consistently express signals that are aligned with each other. And the second stage is the response that they end up actually taking as a result of the conclusion that they draw. So is your audience now going to consume more of your content? Are they going to go ahead and book a call? Are they going to buy your stuff? Are they going to refer you to their friends? And ultimately, will they remain in your ecosystem? Are they going to continue to engage with your stuff again and again? We want the perception that your audience is drawing to lead to a positive response. And let's look at how people are perceiving Hormozy. So the conclusion that most people are going to be drawing from him and his brand is that he's knowledgeable, he's highly capable, and very trustworthy. He's really focused on substance over style instead of theatrical polish. And he's focused mainly on the outcomes and the observables. No fluff, straight to the point. And if you're aligned with Hormozy's perception, then what you're going to do is you're going to consume his content. You're going to buy his $100 million books. You're going to buy his mentorships, and you're going to want to attend his events. And so when it comes to perception, the question that you have to ask yourself is this. Based on the signals that you're sending, what conclusion do people reach about you? Based on that conclusion, how are people responding to you? Are they consuming your content? Are they booking calls with you? Are they buying your stuff? And if not, well, it's probably because the conclusion that they're drawing is not aligned. And so that is how you do it. Source, translation, perception. This is how you build a one-of-one personal brand that people cannot copy. Something that cannot be replaced or substituted. And ultimately, people are going to start seeing you as the person to go to if they're aligned with your values and they're drawing the right conclusion. If you like what you heard today, then you'll probably like what me and my team can help you do with curating a one-of-one personal brand. If that sounds like you and you like the approach that we take over here, then you know where to find me, top link in the description. Can't wait to see you in the next video, and until then, have a great rest of your day.